Jane Schnupp here again. Welcome to another of the new Savvy Sightseer video vacation series. Today we are visiting Austria, but we're going beyond its most famous sister cities of Vienna and Salzburg, which you can see in a different Savvy Sightseer video vacation. Although both are beautiful cities, Vienna is the country's capital and Salzburg is its cultural center, there's so much more to see in Austria. On this trip to the country, we will cover all levels of sightseeing, from high up in the mountains to deep below ground, roller coastering, if you will, among the different altitudes. And of course, we'll ground ourselves as well with terra firma. We will learn of a mysterious event that likely changed the course of history. We'll see some gruesome scenes and some that are magically brilliant. We'll visit the host city of one of my all-time favorite Olympics, the 1976 Winter Games. We'll explore a bit off the beaten track, learn a little trivia, and experience a sight and sound show that shines a whole new light on an everyday kitchen staple. So buckle up, let's go to Austria. In no time at all, you can leave the hustle and bustle of the capital city for the 521 square mile pastoral expanse known as the Vienna Woods. These have been said to have inspired the Johann Strauss waltz and were home to the Habsburgs and Ludwig van Beethoven. This green lung is part of a green belt. In 2005, the Vienna Woods were designated a biosphere reserve by UNESCO. That's a protection for areas with a special cultural and natural landscape. In addition to miles of hiking and biking trails, scenic views along the Danube, which, by the way, is not at all blue here, these woods also hold secrets and tales of intrigue. Originally, monarchs used the woods as a private hunting ground. So, of course, there had to be a royal hunting lodge. But this one was far from a happy place, and an event here likely changed the course of world history. In 1889, Emperor Franz Joseph's only son and the 30-year-old heir to the Habsburg Empire, Crown Prince Rudolf, and his 17-year-old mistress, the Baroness Marie Vessera, died at the hunting lodge. No one is quite sure if it was a suicide pact between desperate lovers. The Pope had refused to annul Rudolph's very unhappy marriage to Princess Stephanie of Belgium. Or it could have been a murder-suicide, or even an assassination of the young heir to the empire. Regardless, his father was so bereaved that the emperor had the hunting lodge torn down and replaced with his Carmelite convent, the Church of Carmel St. Joseph Merli. The odd pattern on the roof is seemingly out of concert with the pale yellow buildings, but that is the motif for the Habsburgs, instantly recognizable as one of their buildings. And his mother, the Empress Elizabeth, also known as Sisi, donated a statue of the Madonna with a dagger in the Immaculate Heart. She gave that for the chapel of the church. It is said the sculpture's face resembles the bereaved mother. 10 Carmelite nuns lead a devout and secluded life within the monastery walls. Their main source of financing today is from tourists and donations. The order itself dates back to 1604 and is a Roman Catholic religious community focused on a life of peace and penance. Over 130 years after the Crown Prince's death, the Merling nuns still hold a commemorative mass for him every January 30th, the date of the fateful event. They also remember their founder, Emperor Franz Joseph, in November, on the anniversary of his death. The church is certainly a mix of artistic styles. This organ loft evokes a light touch, depicting 7 angels with musical instruments very different from the view opposite of the altar, which is the handiwork of Austrian church artist Josef Kastner. The altar is situated directly over the spot where the star-crossed lover's bed had been, and in the room where the 2 bodies had been found. Because he was the only heir, the Crown Prince's death changed the order of succession within the Habsburg dynasty, and after Emperor Franz Josef's death, it would have gone to his younger brother, the Archduke Karl Ludwig, and then ultimately to his son, Franz Ferdinand. This disruption in sovereignty reportedly upended a pending peace effort with Hungary. The wildly unpopular Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in 1914, which in turn led in part to World War I. Of course, having word get out that the Crown Prince potentially died by suicide, absolutely unacceptable in the Catholic Church, and, along with his 17-year-old mistress, no less, needed swift action to rewrite the narrative. Rudolph's body was secretly taken by train to Vienna and the family's home, while various stories were concocted to explain his death. Eventually, an autopsy was released alluding to some type of nerve condition that led him to lose his mental faculties and so to suicide. In other words, the suicide would not have been his fault, allowing for him to have a state and Christian burial. Of course, his Baroness lover wouldn't be afforded the same, and Rudolph's valet locked her body in a closet until her family came to secret her away. The story goes that they propped her up in a carriage and in the dark of night drove through the country to a nearby abbey where she was initially buried in a suicide corner. Her mother later had a crypt built for her and the body moved there. The abbey, whose name I can't pronounce, so look at it right up there in the right-hand corner, it translates to the Abbey of the Holy Cross, is the oldest continuously active and still inhabited Cistercian monastery in the world. Cistercians are a branch of the Catholic Church order of the Benedictines, who decided they wanted a more simple life. Today, about 64 monks live there. Reportedly, in 1188, Duke Leopold V gave the abbey a fragment of the so-called True Cross on which Christ was crucified. The abbey claims to house the second largest collection of fragments of the True Cross. A mishmash of varying architectural styles, the abbey is an expansive complex reflecting almost 900 years of history. More than 100,000 tourists come to the abbey every year. Prominent in the courtyard is the Trinity Column, created in the 1730s by Giovanni Giuliani, who was the son of a Venetian banker. In 1711, after marital and financial issues led him to leave Vienna, Giovanni entered the monastery as a lay brother, where over the course of 33 years he devoted himself almost exclusively to numerous commissions for the abbey, including the monks' choir stalls. A combination of nut and linden woods, they display religious scenes and busts of bishops, abbots, and statesmen. It's a real treat if your visit coincides with the monks' chant schedule. Their Gregorian chants resonate from the church 5 times a day, accompanied by an elaborate floor-to-ceiling organ, one of the biggest musical instruments in Austria, with 3,700 pipes. Famed 19th century Austrian composer Franz Schubert composed a piece of music specifically for this organ. Since getting to Austria isn't easy at the moment, you can still hear the magnificent chants of the monks by checking out their CD from your local library system. Giuliani also designed the church's high altar. The wooden cross, though, is a much later addition. That came in 1980, and it is a replica of an Italian original that dates back to 1138. Each room of the abbey is distinctive and has stories to tell. The lead fountain on the right was the abbey's washing room until the mid-1500s. It was made in Rome in 1556 and consists of 5 lead basins. A stunning rosette window in the chapter house, which is where the investiture ceremony for new novices are conducted, won first prize for colors and composition at the World Exhibition in Paris in 1889. Over toward the middle of the country, we find the 140-mile Salzburg River, which is more than just a pretty waterway. The river's importance is far greater, and many towns grew adjacent to it. Starting in the Austrian Alps, it was a major transportation route for salt, or S-A-L-Z, salts. Historically, this was used as a method of trade and currency. The word salary comes from it. It's considered white gold, and the Salzach was the means to get it from the mines to the markets. The Salzach is also a natural border between Austria and Bavaria. and the namesake of Salzburg, or Salt City, which controlled shipment of the commodity along the Salzach River. About a half hour south of Salzburg, just over the border of the Bavarian Alps, is the picturesque town of Berchtesgaden. Visitors passing through the area would never guess that deep in the mountain lay a major source of the valuable mineral. At the salt mine, visitors put on a pair of coveralls and take a train ride into the heart of the mine. And then the real thrill, a slide to get deeper into the tunnels. Not your typical work commute. For this part of the journey, guides load you up 3 at a time at the top of this shaft with a bar across the first person. Each one is told to hold on to the one in front as gravity starts to push you together. The first person, in my case me, doesn't get to hold on to anything because after the pressure builds sufficiently, the bar gives way and you go whizzing down 112 feet for a very spooky experience. Especially when you don't come down as uniformly as these guys who followed my little trio. As we started our descent, I suddenly felt the man behind me lose his grip on my shoulders, which sent me twisting to the bottom. Fortunately, I came out shaken but unscathed. Unlike the man's ego, his wife started yelling at him as soon as we stood up, demanding why he'd let go. He said, "Well, I didn't know her, so I didn't want to hold on too tight. Gee, thanks." A surprise treat is amid the darkness of the mines comes when you get on a short ferry ride across the incredibly clear salt mirror lake, so named because the ceiling reflects perfectly off the still water. The lake is about 430 feet below ground. The raft ride quietly takes you across the mile-long brine lake, where you are treated to a dazzling sound and salt crystal light display that flashes across the cavernous walls. Fortunately, technology awaits at the end of the boat ride, and an old funicular goes back up to ground level. Although it is sad to think of the men who toiled in the dark caves to provide the valuable cash product of salt, great efforts have been taken at Berchtesgaden to make this an educational experience geared toward different age levels. Images and hands-on displays explain where salt comes from and its importance over the ages to humanity. Mining started in the Austria-German border region in the late 12th century, but it didn't really get fully functional until the mine opened in 1517. Since then, salt has been mined here continually. Pure alpine brine is still extracted from the mine and then pumped to a nearby salt works, where the water is evaporated to leave behind high-quality salt. From deep underground, we go next to great heights and the world's biggest ice cave at another place where I can't pronounce the name, but it is translated as the Ice Giant World. It's about 30 miles south of Salzburg and up more than 5,000 feet in the town of Werfen. It was opened in a rudimentary way to the public in 1920, but it wasn't until the 1950s that it became more readily accessible with a road and a cable car installed for part of the trip. In fact, it's the steepest gondola ride in Austria. The cave winds its way roughly 26 miles into the mountain, but only the first half mile or so is open to the public. And oh, what sights are seen along the way. Unfortunately, one item you can leave behind is a camera. No photography is permitted, and all the pictures you see here are from the website. Operators contend this policy is not to increase postcard sales, but rather to enhance the visitor experience. Tours operate every 6 minutes, and people stopping to get a perfect shot, they say, would spoil the experience for everyone. The cave's natural ice sculptures are now considered one of the most popular sightseeing attractions around Salzburg. The site belongs to the Austrian Federal Forest, but is leased to the Salzburg Association for Cave Research, which operates the tours. The visual wonderland includes frozen waterfalls, stalactites, icicles, and natural ice sculptures, as well as glowing tunnels. And the views are astonishing inside and out. Okay, grab your roller coaster bar. We are zipping back underground. About 15 miles southwest of Vienna, and about 200 feet below ground, a gypsum mine once flourished in the 18th century. Today, the mine is open to tourists as a place called Seegrot, and it is a bit unsettling to walk in the footsteps of the some 80 miners who worked here as you go down a long and narrow, cold tunnel, a compelling recognition of the dismal workday environment for them. Mining was not an easy profession by any stretch of the imagination, and I found this visit to be a real mixed bag. It was unexpected then to see this narrow shaft open to a large festival room. Here, at least, the owners rewarded their hard workers with a celebration on the early December feast day of the mine's patron, St. Barbara. They had a great meal and some wine from the owner's vineyard. In a chapel in another section of the mine that is also dedicated to the saint, today a mass periodically is conducted by the Cardinal of Vienna and commemorates the miners and their sacrifices. Not only were miners subjected to terrible work conditions, so were the poor horses who dragged out the mined gypsum. They were stabled within the mine and were blinded to keep them calm while they worked for an average of 20 years in the mines. But the story of mine workers and their beasts of burden are not the main reason most tourists visit Seegrot, which translates to sea grotto. The big draw here is a subterranean lake, the largest in Europe. But even the lake came at the expense of disaster. A detonation in 1912 went wrong, causing the mine to flood as 20 million liters of water gushed into the labyrinth. The mine was closed and remained largely forgotten until an international team of cave explorers discovered the unique natural spectacle in the 1930s, and the underwater lake was open to visitors to sail through the shafts on an electric boat. The mine's negative history was not over, though. During World War II, Nazis realized the potential of controlling vast underground caves. They seized the mine, pumped out all of the water, and set up an underground aircraft factory. Here, an aviation milestone was realized. The first jet fighter was built, safe below ground from the Allies' bombs. But it wasn't Nazi army workers doing the building. Over the course of the war, some 2,000 concentration camp prisoners and POWs were forced in inhumane conditions in the tunnels to construct the fuselages for Heinkel HE-162 fighters. The final assembly was done at a nearby airport. It's also believed the Nazis used Seegrot to hide priceless works of art. After the war, the mine was filled with water and eventually opened to the public again. Since the lake doesn't have any natural drainage, water is pumped out daily to keep the passages navigable. The unique atmosphere of the tunnels and lake captured the imagination of movie makers, and it served as the set for filming Disney's 1993 version of The Three Musketeers. And now to a spot where we can combine all three altitudinal experiences, from ground level to well above and then way below. During the memorable Winter Olympics of 1976, Dorothy Hamill dazzled the skating world and inspired American hairstyling. Austrian Franz Klammer flew down the slopes, and John Curry combined flawless technical skills with elegant ballet moves to bring Great Britain its first gold medal in men's figure skating. They stepped out of the pages of relative obscurity and became household names, along with the spectacular host city of that year's games, Innsbruck. Scenes of the lovely little Austrian town sparked an interest for me, as well as for many other Americans, I'm sure, and it went on the bucket list of places to visit. Innsbruck is the capital city of Tyrol, the western wedge of Austria that is bordered by Switzerland and Liechtenstein to the west, Germany to the north, and Italy to the south. Its name is simple and descriptive enough: Bridge over the River Inn. One landmark in Innsbruck that's easy to pick out because of its golden roof is just simply called the Golden Roof. Emperor Maximilian I, who reigned in the late 1400s and early 1500s, made Innsbruck his main residence and the seat of the Habsburg government. He added the grand viewing stand to this building in the center of the old town so the royal family could enjoy events, parades, and jousting tournaments under a roof slated with 2,657 fire-gilded copper shingles. It was designed in part as a flashy show of wealth to dispel rumors of imperial financial difficulties. Artwork on the facade includes portraits of the Emperor Maximilian I with two of his wives, Mary of Burgundy and Bianca Maria Sforza. About 10 minutes out of town, we head for the hills again. This time, we are off to Bergisgau, where ski jumpers had viewers transfixed on TV sets around the world in 1976. We watched as daredevil skiers flew off a ramp at ridiculous speeds and landed gracefully below. The first ski jump here was constructed in 1925. The current one is billed as the most modern ski sports facility in the world, with space for over 28,000 spectators. Its sleek design and 155-foot tall tower of concrete and glass were not initially embraced by everyone, and many thought it too stark a contrast with the medieval city over which it hovers. But the plan of a British-Iraqi architectural firm won a competition in 1999 and opened the new ski jump in 2002 to athletes and tourists alike. Hardy souls can opt to hike up the 455 steps to the top. Others can take advantage of the inclined elevator that whisks visitors up to the 820 feet in just 2 minutes. There, a terrace and cafe provide outstanding views of skiers who train or compete here year-round, as well as a breathtaking 360-degree panorama of Innsbruck, nestled below in the Nordkette mountain chain. A unique crystal souvenir was designed at a nearby factory for the 1976 Olympic Games. An employee glued together several chandelier pieces to form a tiny mouse. When I found out what company that was, I got hopeful there'd be a chance to visit the factory on a tour and maybe get a trinket to take away. That company is for Swarovski Crystal, and even better than a factory tour, they offer crystal worlds. Opened in 1995 in Wattens, just 10 miles east of Innsbruck, the crystal worlds are guaranteed to dazzle everyone. Chambers of wonder, or cabinets of curiosities, were prominent in the 16th to 18th centuries, as it became the fashion of monarchs to display collections of unusual and notable objects. So the title is perfect for this particular collection of underground caverns. In 1995, it had marked the company's 100th anniversary since Daniel Swarovski, from a glass-cutting family, and his partner, Franz Weiss, had established themselves in Wattens. After patenting a machine they said did unprecedented precision cutting of jewelry stones, they turned the industry on its end. With continued innovation and product line expansion, the company grew exponentially, and they decided to celebrate their success by opening an 18-acre Wonderland, a multimedia attraction and cultural center, as a special gift for their faithful customers and fans. Swarovski contacted the Austrian multimedia artist Andre Heller to develop an experiential concept. Heller chose as his centerpiece a giant, a throwback to his childhood in Vienna when he imagined them wandering at night before turning into stone at dawn. He envisioned a giant roaming the world before settling down in Wattens, where he watched over his chambers of wonder and garden of sculptures and exhibits. The result is 17 underground caverns, each presenting unique interpretations of crystal by world-famous artists. According to officials, wonder sets in when people experience something unexpected. And I'll let you be the judge of whether they accomplish that. I, for one, think they do. At the center of silent light is a spectacular sparkling crystal tree, one of the most photographed objects in the crystal world. Its 150,000 sparkling Swarovski crystals are designed to evoke images of bone-chillingly cold and yet heartwarmingly romantic winterscape. Into Latticed Sun is described as a metropolitan, dramatic, and utopian landscape. The Crystal Dome consists of 595 mirrors that give the viewer the feeling of being inside a crystal. And this chamber of wonder, called the studio job, is truly wondrous. The artists say their intent is to initially give the effect of a fairground brimming with exuberant color, then invite visitors to make their own discoveries among the various shapes, reflections, and allusions to modern society. In the famous chamber is a stunningly delicate replica of the Taj Mahal in Agra. The newest addition to the Wonderland is a striking 41-foot in diameter black and white carousel. It is spectacularly set off against the lush greenery of the outdoor garden. It reimagines the traditional carousel while keeping a sense of nostalgia. The monochrome design shimmers with 15 million Swarovski crystals across 12 ceiling panels and 16 wall panels. Fantasy characters provide seating. The artist's intent, he said, is to express the joy, surprise, and delight that riding a carousel brings. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Austria from different perspectives, high, low, and in between. I like to end all of the programs with the words of Dr. Seuss. Sometimes you don't appreciate the moment until it becomes a memory, and I like to always add to that to say, remember to celebrate those moments and treasure the memories. To see more of Austria or any of my European destinations, go to my website. If you have any questions about this program, email me or use the contact page on my website. When libraries are again offering programs, you can check my programs tab to see where I'll be. Until then, visit the library site for more video vacations by Savvy Sightseer. Guten Tag.